Hello, I'm Francisco and this is Whaaat, a show about history. Today we will interpret an image, talk about social class, industry, and one of the most controversial paintings of the 18th century, which was arguably one of the drivers for the French Revolution, Marie Antoinette in Muslin by Elisabeth Lebrun. From a modern perspective, you're probably looking at it and thinking, scandalous, controversial? It honestly doesn't look that bad. It's literally just Marie Antoinette, Queen of France at the time, standing there holding a rose, smiling at the painter. It's actually kind of pretty because the pink in the rose matches her blush and it all contrasts with the blue in her hair. However, if you've seen other paintings of Marie Antoinette, you may notice that the clothes she's wearing in this portrait are very different to what she wears in other portraits. In general, in her state portraits, she would wear silks, huge headpieces, this very impractical silhouette for her dress, and very specific thought-out elements around her to suggest her job as Queen of France. Crowns, because she's a queen, the fleur-de-lis, because it's the symbol of the French monarchy, maybe a globe to symbolize French imperialism in North America, and let's not forget her husband, King Louis XVI of France. So her dress and the entire layout of the Muslin portrait is, at least from a visual perspective, very much outside the norm. And yes, that is why it was a scandal. The Muslin portrait broke all the rules, and not in a fun, find yourself kind of way. It was more in a, maybe we should make a revolution kind of way. When the Muslin portrait was shown in the Paris Salon in 1783, the most important art exhibit in France at the time, it was so scandalous that the artist was actually forced to redo it. What she came up with the second time is basically the same portrait, but with Marie Antoinette dressed like in her other state portraits, wearing shiny silk, wearing jewelry unlike in the Muslin portrait, and her queenly headpiece. The main issue here was not the muslin itself, although that was also important, but Marie Antoinette not showing herself as what she actually was, a queen. In France's Ancien regime, which was basically a facet of the Middle Ages where the King of France made sure to charge taxes by cleanly dividing society into social classes. These social classes were so separate that they even had separate representations in the government. At the top of this social structure was the royal family, where Marie Antoinette was. And they had the most important responsibility for this social structure, to keep the government predictable and stable. They would do this by making sure to follow every rule and convention that their social class and the people around them expected from them. Basically by acting and looking like what they actually were. Royalty. Have portraits made with your crown every year? Sure. Receive dignitaries in your court? The more the merrier. Wear silks to make them fashionable so the French silk industry stays alive? Every single day. In the Muslin portrait, Marie Antoinette is pretending to be something she's not. And from a conservative perspective, this is basically the opposite of what she's supposed to do. It's unpredictable and unstable. On the other hand, the Queen's fashion choices had economic consequences. French fashion relied on silks brought from Asia and Italy throughout most of the Middle Ages, until the 1460s when King Louis XI decided that a national silk industry would fix France's trade deficit. Basically, France was losing a huge amount of money by having royals and nobles buy silk from Italy, so he thought that making a silk industry in Lyon, in the south of France, would fix this. By the time Marie Antoinette was queen in the 1770s, not only did the silk industry employ about a third of the people living in Lyon, Tours, and Provence in the south of France, but Lyon was also the center of silk manufacturing in all of Europe. This was a huge economic weight that depended directly on the royal family continuing to wear silks that then nobles would want to buy, which would keep a lot of people in the south of France employed and happy. After all, this is happening in the initial stages of the Industrial Revolution, when countries like France are beginning to depend on industry and trade to maintain their economies afloat. So when Marie Antoinette made the style choice to ditch silk and choose muslin, which was also expensive because it was imported from Asia, she wasn't just setting a new trend, she was destabilizing her country's economy, making all those people who depended on the silk trade and saw this picture think,
wow, she just doesn't care about us.
Now, it's important to keep in mind that Marie Antoinette was also criticized for wearing too many silks and basically for existing as a queen. She really was in a lose-lose situation, because people would hate her for doing what she was expected to do, because then she would look rich and look like she was flaunting wealth, but they would also hate her for not doing what she was expected to do. This is an extremely difficult position to be in, and the Muslin portrait made it worse. Basically, in today's terms, imagine what a president looks like. You're probably picturing someone who looks professional, polished, likely wearing formal clothes. And especially if you're in the suit making business, you may see the image of this very important person wearing a suit and think, wow, I'll continue to have a job if other people want to dress like that. However, imagine you are that same person who one day sees your president show up, not looking presidential and not wearing a suit. Sure, on one hand you'll be like, he's not acting like he should, but you may also have the very rational fear that because of what he's doing, other people won't want to wear suits anymore, which means you're kind of out of a job in the long term. And if you're in Ancien regime France and you're so poor that you have nothing to lose, you may just happen to think that a revolution wouldn't be so bad. I hope you learned something. See you next time.